think about that sometimes doing this,
Mm-hmm.
just how much of myself I'm putting out there. And should it be out there in the first place?
Yeah.
Should I have my guard up a little bit more with it?
Do you ever feel like you regret not having your guard up? Are there times where you feel like you've overshared?
Yes. But I think it's intentional in some ways. I was a very private person going into this, very private.
Okay.
I didn't post on social media. I didn't even share things with close family members or friends. I was very private.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an intentional decision that if I'm going to do this, the only way that it works is if you're honest.
Yeah.
How are you going to resonate with someone if you're putting up a facade? But it's been challenging, kind of breaking down this wall that I've built up over the past 20 something years.
Yeah.
And be like, is it too much? Should I have said that? Should I not have said that? Should I tell this story if it fits in the context of the conversation that I'm having, knowing that it's something I would have kept private before? That is challenging sometimes.
Yeah, I hear that for sure.
And I don't know if you ever really know the answer to it. You almost have to take the leap and then hope that you land softly. And sometimes you don't. And it's a learning lesson in itself.
It's so true. It's so true. And then like the late night worrying of like, what did I say? Should I have said it differently? How do I make that come back? Like wishing you could eat what you've said.
Remove it from the internet.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had a few of those moments too.
Yeah.
Where you're just staying up at night thinking, oh man, why did I say that?
Yeah.
Because you can't get words back.
No. I'm never afraid of saying something about myself. I think I worry about the way I've said something. Like if I've caused anybody offense, I never want anybody to feel sad or offended or hurt by my words, even though that's just the nature of it. What is that?
It's a nicotine pouch. Do you want one of those?
No, I do not. But is it like better than smoking or something?
Oh yeah, it's just pure nicotine.
Oh.
So I've started doing those. It kind of just, it's almost it is a nootropic, nicotine is. And it kind of just, I feel locks you into the conversation a little bit more. I do them during podcasts now.
Okay.
I don't smoke. I have cigars there because I will do a cigar occasionally, but nicotine's kind of been my caffeine adjacent.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
So do you know what like the negative side effects of nicotine is? Because I know like vaping, there's just all the chemicals you're putting into your body, and cigarettes are obviously terrible, but is nicotine in itself bad?
It's not dangerous in the sense that you're not going to die from it. It can raise your blood pressure. There's concerns there for some people.
Okay.
It is also highly addictive for some people. Mm-hmm. There are horror stories of people getting pretty attached to it, not being able to wean themselves off. I, as a personality type, don't really get addicted in that way. I think if I'm addicted to anything, it's probably junk food.
Okay.
And I can moderate that fairly well, usually. Yeah. But I look at it as caffeine. I would have a cup of coffee. It's late in the day, so I don't want to mess with my sleep. That's why I would do this. But if we were doing this at 10 a.m., I would have a cup of coffee. I do Monsters, too.
Yeah.
I slip into that. That was a habit I developed in my teenage years that has been hard to kick at various points in my life.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, this has been something new. I've maybe been doing it only for like 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
But it's pretty popular, especially in the podcast space, for whatever reason.
Really?
It's taken off. Yeah, a lot of people do them.
How many come in that pack?
15.
And how much does it cost?
It's only like $6.
Oh.
Which is not, price-wise is great.
Yeah.
Because you can buy a Monster's $2.50.
Yeah.
So for 15, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Keep your eyes out. I'm sure you'll see people doing them. It's a little harder in California because they ban the flavored ones.
Oh, okay.
You have to go out of state to get those. Contraband in California. But yeah.
I'm sure my kids have done it. I wouldn't be surprised.
How old's your oldest? In college. So he might have college.
Maybe. Probably not. He's never done any substances. He doesn't do that at all. My daughter, yes, and my youngest, yes. But
no drinking as well for the college one?
No.
Wow.
I know. Nothing. He's very straight edge when it comes to stuff like that. And my daughter's the same. Like she tried all the drinking and pot and everything, and it just like totally messed with her head, and she hates the way it makes her feel. So she doesn't do anything. And my son Antonio is doing his best to stay away from it. So
kudos to you.
Yeah.
That's a good sign, right? I had a friend in high school who was actually allergic to cannabis. And she would break out almost in hives.
Oh.
So
nice.
Kind of worked out for her because she never actually wanted to try it because she even just being around it, close to the smoke, she would break out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It sucks.
That was the first time I'd actually heard of that and witnessed it.
Dang.
Yeah. Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
I think caffeine is probably my biggest addiction.
Really?
Yeah, I do caffeine daily. And probably I was thinking about this the other day. I've probably had caffeine consistently with maybe a week or two off.
Okay.
Since I was 8.
Yeah.
Too young, but that's almost 20 years.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. So are we already recording?
Yeah, we're going right now.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're going. This is us.
Oh, I had no idea. That's hilarious. Okay. That's okay. Cool.
So how's everything else going? How's life how's life in the church? How's everything going for you?
Good. Life in the church has been great. It's weird. Being a pastor is strange. Like for today, I figured out it's, going to be Christmas soon. So I was figuring out the Christmas Eve service and then Sunday's service. And then I went over to the homeless. It's like a intentional community called The Grove, which is part of Arcata House Partnership. And they had a couple of their people pass away in the last bit. And so in the last couple of days. And so I just was a compassionate listener. So I just sat there and listened to people share their stories about the people there that have passed away and the loss that they've experienced. And yeah, so it's just, I get to do things like that. And I feel really honored. There's another woman who reached out to me because she has a client she's an elderly woman and her client is an elderly woman and she just, her child is transitioning and she's trying to figure out how do I deal with my adult child who's transitioning genders and she's a person of faith and she just wanted to talk to a pastor who might understand a little bit about that and how to be faithful to scripture and still accept and love your child. So, those are the kinds of things I get to do.
All fun stuff. All very light, doesn't weigh on you.
Oh, yeah, no big deal.
You can go home, take it off, you're fine.
Easy stuff. Yeah.
That was always a big confrontation with me personally and the church when I was growing up. I was in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And it was always their stance on gay people. Mm-hmm. I had family members that were gay, and it was just, I could never understand, I could never contextualize it in my brain that if God had made this world and had made all of us in his image and had wanted us to live life and pursue our happiness and do all of these things, and we were his children, mm-hmm. how would he not love his children if he had made them this way? And I never bought into the argument that, it's a challenge, that God is placing this burden on you, hoping that you don't succumb to it.
Yeah.
Why would you want to set your child up to fail?
Yeah.
And why would you want them to endure that? I mean, you can make the same argument there for cancer or something like that, but I think maybe this is me just justifying it, but I think that's a little different. I think that's a different struggle than just who you love and who you want to spend your life with.
Totally. I know those are really important questions that you wrestled with and probably still wrestle with to some degree. And I think that's the point, is that we're meant to wrestle with it. Whereas sometimes the church will just offer an answer like, well, it's just not in the Bible or it's not allowed. And so you just have to stay away from it or whatever.
Which isn't even a good answer.
No, it's a terrible answer. It's like, it stops conversation. It makes somebody feel shame for even asking the question. And I don't know. I think that part of what it means to be a person of faith, or a Christian person of faith specifically, is that you're meant to wrestle with it. I mean, the God of the Bible in the Old Testament is wrestling with Jacob in the wilderness. And then so God and Jacob are wrestling over all sorts of things. I don't even know what it was. They wrestle all night long, and you read it in the book of Genesis. And then at the end, God looks at Jacob and he says, I'm going to change your name to Israel because you wrestled with God. And so the whole point of what it means to be a person of faith in the God of Israel is to be one that wrestles, that like struggles in it, instead of just accepting the handed doctrines or the traditional beliefs that are handed down. Those are beautiful. Those are wonderful. I think we're meant to like receive those. But if we just receive them for what they are instead of receiving them with a wrestling spirit, then we're missing out on the opportunity to engage deeply with the ways that God has created us to engage.
And I think some of that is just the structure of the Catholic Church specifically as well. Just how they are so rigid in those founding ideals and the church, the hierarchy of the church as well.
Yeah.
There's just you don't question. You're listening, you're hearing the sermons, and then this is the word of gospel. You have to take it from the person who's up there.
Yeah.
And you don't question it. You just kind of, it's almost militaristic in a sense that you just kind of fall in line.
Yeah.
It's lightened up. So I've heard, I haven't been to church in a while, or at least a Catholic church in a while, but supposedly it's lightened up with the new Pope and his understanding of everything and what he's been preaching.
Yeah. In some sects of Catholicism, that is true. There are a lot of people that are very appreciative of Pope Francis and the perspective that he has. He's so gracious. But there's other sects of Catholicism that have doubled down in wanting to kind of separate themselves from the teachings of Pope Francis. And I don't think that they would say that they don't believe in the Pope because the Pope is the Pope, because that'd be a huge heresy. but definitely like wanting to become stricter and more conservative in their values happens all the time.
Do you think that's just a counter backlash? That now that the pendulum of the church has kind of swung this way, they're trying to counteract that?
I think we're always swinging the pendulum. In
every aspect of life.
aspect. Oh, totally. And I think when it comes to even like having the answers given to you from like the powers that be, whether you're Catholic or Protestant or any other religion, life just feels really daunting sometimes. It feels really exhausting, overwhelming. There's so much loss in our lives and difficulties and change in leadership and a new president coming, all these different things that feel really overwhelming and insurmountable. And sometimes you just need somebody to tell you what to believe. And that feels really good. And I don't think it's the right thing in any way, but I do understand the longing for that. Like I can get why somebody would want to be at a church where they are told what to believe and how to live their lives. And I mean, even the gospel or salvation or whatever you want to call it is often put together in like a formulaic space. Like
do these
A
things.
plus B equals C. Exactly. Yeah. Like if you say this prayer and you do this little like cross your heart or whatever, and then you're in.
You're going to heaven.
Yep. Make sure that you get baptized and take your
check
first
every
communion.
Box.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a box to check for sure. And I don't think that's the way it's meant to be.
How do you stop yourself when do you ever go into spirals like that over life or over politics or over just things that are influencing you in your environment? Do you ever kind of feel like you're going a little stir crazy?
Yeah. I don't know if I stop myself though, because I don't ever feel like it gets to a place that is obsessive or unhealthy in me. I like tangling things, like unraveling things a little bit. I like getting down to the nitty-gritty of things, and just being in life with people in that way is it's meaningful to me. But yeah, I don't know if I really get stuck in the weeds too often. And when I do, I usually just have to like push it to the side for a little bit.
You don't feel any discomfort sitting in those moments. You think that you can handle it at that level.
Yeah, but also my memory is so bad.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. You just have to endure long enough to forget it. And then it's a bright day.
Totally. Oh,
maybe that's my problem. I need to maybe take some memory de-enhancing pills.
Oh, I would take your memory in a second. I swear I can't remember much of anything. Like last week I was writing a sermon about Mary because we're in Advent. And so I was going through the Magnificat, which is this incredibly powerful prophecy that Mary sang out over Elizabeth in the Bible, in Luke's gospel. And I was just thinking about Mary as like a human being, like as a real live human who had a real life and had real life experiences and had a real mom and dad and probably had real siblings. And I remember thinking like, gosh, we are, as humans, we are meant to find our identity in the love of God, that God's love for us is everything. And once we can find that state of being, when we can really, truly receive that we are loved more than anything else, then we can figure out the rest of the shit in life, essentially. And Mary, and so much in the Christian Bible is about finding our identity in the love of Jesus. So then I was just like going down this rabbit trail of like, so does Mary find her identity in her son? Like, that's weird. Parents shouldn't try to find their identity in their child. Like, that's really unhealthy. And like, I'm kind of just going down this whole rabbit trail, and I don't have an answer for that. But it's like, okay, if she does find her identity in that Jesus loves her, that her son loves her, which is beautiful, yes, but also kind of weirdly codependent. Then when Mary and her sons are wanting to hook up with Jesus, and he's like teaching, and people are like, "Hey, Jesus, your mom and your brothers are outside. They want to see you." And he's like, "Well, who are my mother and my brothers? And you are my mother and brothers who do the will of God." Like, what kind of rejection would that have felt like for Mary? And then if she's supposed to find her identity in the love of Jesus, and then it just didn't feel like Jesus loved her in that moment, then anyway, I don't know what to do with all that, but that's what happened last week.
You're still kind of processing that.
Well, I would have been if I didn't forget.
There you go. We're back to that. See, my problem is my memory is not great, but I have a very, very good memory when it comes to all of the bad things that I perceived have happened to me.
Oof.
I can carry that.
Okay.
For decades. But the good stuff, poof.
Yeah. So what do you do with the bad stuff? Like, what do you process that? Do you just like...
I just try not to think about it when it comes up. That's what I've learned.
You move on. You move past it.
Yeah. I don't know that you work through it necessarily, but you place it into a box and kind of tape it back up and then wait until it opens and then you just tape it back up.
I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she said that since she's been in therapy, she's learned how to like feel her feelings, which is one of the most important parts about therapy is actually feeling our feelings. And she said what she would do is she would put all of her feelings into a mason jar and tighten the lid on top and throw it into a deep well. And her therapist one day said, all those things just always rise back to the surface again, don't they? And she's like, oh, yes, they do. But sometimes you need to put your feelings in a mason jar and throw them in the well, but knowing that you can access them and you need to access them when the time is right.
But sometimes those feelings aren't even valid. It's just your mind playing tricks on you.
Tell me more.
I mean, I could tell you, we could be here for hours telling you more.
I think
that sometimes you go through a situation and you perceive that the world is ending, that all of these things are working against you, but it's really not. And if you could take a step back and contextualize your place in that moment, you would realize, oh, this is insignificant. This moment really doesn't carry that much weight, but you're in it and you're only perceiving your stance in it. And so the world is ending.
Yeah.
And if you constantly are working through that feeling, you're not getting anywhere because it really didn't matter. I feel like I stumble into those moments.
Okay.
Maybe intentionally, maybe not. But that's my stance of just taping them back up because you recognize they're really not that. I can say that they're really not that important. But then they bubble up and you're like, oh, the world is falling apart again.
But don't you think they're important if you're feeling it in the moment? And in the grand scheme, absolutely not. You're right. Like that experience that caused that emotional response in the grand scheme isn't important. But in that moment, it's like you had this like visceral gut reaction that came from within you for some reason. And to negate that feeling that came from it is almost negating a little piece of who you are.
I think there's an argument for that. I think it depends on the moment. I mean, I feel like most of the moments that I'm tormented by, I don't want to say there's not a lesson to them, because I think you could find a lesson in anything. It's just, you can acknowledge the lesson and still not let the moment torment you. And I am a sucker for allowing myself to be tormented by my own mind.
Gotcha.
And that's my problem.
Yes. So when you feel yourself sinking into that state of torment, what helps get you out?
Taping the box back up.
Okay.
No, but really probably working out. Physical exertion has kind of been my saving grace. Okay. I think it's that for a lot of people as well. Just getting out of your mind and into your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever come back does the box ever just keep falling off the shelf over and over again?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever unpacked any of those boxes?
I don't know if there's enough space to unpack those boxes.
Just one box.
Yeah, but then how do you pick which box?
Oh.
These are the questions.
Yeah. Probably the one that happened your senior year of high school.
Ooh. I got a lot of boxes before that. Do we start in chronological order? Because I'd have to go back to preschool. I'll pack a few of those boxes first.
Yeah.
Maybe just start on the top shelf and work my way down.
Yeah.
Might work. I don't even think they're organized. I think it's just you walk into a room and you're like, what? Who lives here? What kind of hoarder has lost their mind here? That might be my storage unit in my brain. It's just some hoarder is like, why are you saving this still? What is the point of that?
Old Band-Aids next to trophies.
Oh, man. Cups that are like half filled with water just sitting. Like, why do you have this? Dump it out. Clean the dish. Put it away.
Oh, man. Man, these are really good metaphors and analogies for like all sorts of messed up parts of our bodies and minds. Yeah. Do you still like yourself?
Oof. I think I like myself more today than I have in the past, but I don't know if I would say that I like myself. I think I'm working towards liking myself.
Yeah.
I think this podcast has been a big avenue for that. I think there's a distinct change in my character before the podcast and after.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this version of me better than the previous. But I don't know if I would want to grab a beer with myself, which is kind of a sad thing to think about. That's why I'm having a beer with you. This is way better.
Everybody else would want to have a beer with you.
I don't know. But that goes back to letting people in. And if people knew the real you, would they still want to be around you?
Would you want to be around somebody else if you knew the real them?
Trying to get me caught up in a trap. Yes.
Yeah.
I would.
There's a big trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that weird how like you would actually like people
more,
even knowing their nitty gritty grossness?
But you don't want people to know that of you.
Totally.
Why is that?
I don't know. But I see you and I like you. And I know I don't see all of you. And you don't see all of me. And sometimes a space like this isn't always conducive to that because even though we're like just talking to each other, there's certain guards that are up, of course. That's just what it means to be human. Especially knowing that a lot of other people are listening. I don't know how many people listen in, but at least like a dozen people are listening in. And so there's just this reality that even though it feels like it's personal with me and you sitting here together, there's this like background noise of other people listening in.
Do you have that? Because you do another podcast.
I do.
Do you think about that? The people listening in?
Yeah. I don't know who listens in though. Like this is local. So I feel like there's local people that would know me who listens in. Whereas the other podcast, it doesn't feel as local. I don't know why.
This is actually less local.
Really?
Yeah, which has been surprising.
Okay.
I mean, it started out very, very local, but actually now I think a strong majority is not even in California.
No
anymore.
way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know who listens to this either, but I just tried to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually just my mom that listens.
That was me for years. Probably still is to some degree.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Thanks for listening.
Oh, goodness. So how often do you go to the gym?
You know what's funny? We're talking about the gym. I haven't been to the gym I have sporadically, but these past 2 weeks, I was going religiously at least 5 days. I was trying to work in more rest days.
Okay.
But the past 2 weeks have just been chaotic. And I can see, whenever I stop going to the gym, I can see a distinct personality change, which is why I try to stay structured in the gym. But I've maybe gone 2 or 3 times over the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
Which is, I almost went today and then I didn't. I was like, oh,
why not?
I had all this editing I was trying to get done before you came here.
Oh, it's my fault.
I gotta get this. Yeah.
You're blaming me.
No, this is way better than the gym, but I was in my head trying to get some other stuff done and made a conscious decision of I'll do this instead of going to the gym.
Yeah. Which
has been occurring over the past 2 weeks. That's been the same play that I've been going over.
Can you go later today or tonight?
I have to be up I get up at like 3:30 in the morning.
Why?
For work. So I was trying to go in the afternoons.
Okay.
I used to go in the mornings. That was when I was most structured. I would go at 5 when they opened every day.
Oof.
And then I started working earlier, so then it just started spiraling there.
Oh my gosh. Where do you work?
I haven't said this on the podcast yet.
Oh, and you don't have to.
No, I was just thinking about, this is one of those moments where it's like, how much do you reveal? I do.
Or what kind of job?
Physical labor. I'll say that. I do physical
labor
labor jobs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're already working out every day then?
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Is it though?
I mean, physically, yes, because it is a strenuous job. But I think there's a mental clarity that I get when I'm in the gym intentionally lifting weights.
Yeah.
That's kind of when I process my day, my weeks, how I'm feeling. And you don't really get that when you're at work and you're dealing with work BS, all this stuff.
Yeah,
going
people
are
like walking up to you or needing information or something. Yeah, same. Like going to the gym is like my favorite part of the day. Like just
it's the best.
It's the best. Like lifting as heavy as I can and just I let go of everything. I don't talk to I do talk to people sometimes if they talk to me. But
I try not to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I try to like just keep not to be rude, which is hard because people want to talk to you sometimes.
Totally.
But I try to just keep my head down. I'm like, I have 90 minutes or 2 hours. I'm just trying to get my workout and block out everybody else.
Oh, man.
I just want to work out and then I'll get back to life.
Yes, I know. It's such a great feeling though. Yeah.
Do you go a lot?
Yeah, like almost every day. I do rest days. If I go on vacation, I don't work out. Like I try to make sure to be really careful with that. I used to work out on vacation. I'd be like, oh, there's a gym, let's do it. And now I'm just like, nope. I'm not even gonna bring bands or anything. I'm just gonna be here and eat chips and guacamole all day long. But yeah, no, I go all the time. I love it.
That's a good place to be in. I'm still at the state where I judge the place that I'm staying based on their tiny gym and how many free weights they actually have.
That's why I try not to go because I do the same thing. I'm just like,
and it's terrible.
You only
never
go up to
gym.
25 pounds? Who lifts 25 pounds?
There's always like 5 treadmills.
Yeah.
And then no other equipment. You're thinking, what? Who? What?
There's like some weird kettlebell in the corner. It's
they've got some weird abstract machine too. And you're like, what?
Yes.
Why do you have a hip thrust machine and nothing else? And just 5 treadmills?
Oh, gosh. I know. That's really funny. Yeah. Yeah. No, I try to go as much as possible. And my husband just became a trainer too. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
that helps.
It's great. Yeah.
Do you guys work out together? Or do you?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No. Sometimes we'll be in the gym at the same time as each other. And that's super fun because then we get to flirt with our eyes. But no, I don't want to work out with anybody.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I've had people try to, oh, let's work out together.
I know.
Oh, my schedule's so crazy. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it in. I had a girlfriend one time that would get upset with me because I was just not having it. It's like, we can't. I tried it for a little while. It's like, we can't do this. Because in my mind, I have a routine. I know what I'm doing that day. And then they want to do something else or want to do some other movement. I'm like, I just did chest yesterday. I can't. I got to do something different today.
Totally. I know, right? That's so true. Well, and for me, I'll work out with somebody like my kids or even somebody who just needs some pointers, but only after I've already worked out for myself or I know I get to work out later.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. But if I'm there and that's like my time to work out, then I get really irritated. And the same with like if I'm going on walks with people, I used to go on walks and I'd be like, oh, that's like working out. And now I'm just like, that's not my objective here. My objective isn't to like get some exercise in while I walk with you. My objective is just to be side by side so we can have like really deep conversation. And it's great that we're outside doing this instead of sitting in with coffee somewhere. So yeah. But for a while there, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're such slow walkers. We're not getting anything done. And that was my bad.
And then they only want to go a mile and you're like, we could do 3.
Totally.
Yeah. Like, oh.
Yeah, my knee hurts. What? Fine.
Yeah, thanks for telling me mid-walk that you're struggling.
Yeah.
That was nice.
So it's something I've just like learned to totally release and it is so much better.
You have to be guarded with your time.
Yeah.
Because some people just don't. Some people just go with the flow. They've got this breeze that they don't know what they're doing that afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, I've got shit to do.
So much.
I'm planning out my day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to just take a leisurely stroll as my exercise for the day.
Yeah. But at the same time for myself, like one of my objectives, one of like my goals for myself, and I think it actually just comes pretty naturally, is to be available to interruptions and available to whatever's happening. So even at the gym, if somebody interrupts me, then I try to like backpedal in my brain, like, that's right. We're okay with interruptions. This is actually really important. I have something to learn in this encounter. in this moment, and I have something to bring in this encounter in this moment. I don't need to be afraid of this interruption right now. So I just think like being open to those interruptions as opportunities to connect with somebody or to remind them of their worth, or even to be reminded of my own, is something I've been really mindful of helping happen, I guess.
Do you think that's a character trait, or do you think that's a byproduct of your work and the nature of it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of both. I think it does come more naturally to me. Like I think adaptability is a strength of mine most of the time. But also I've really done a lot of discipline, like spiritual discipline, in like being mindful of the presence of God in the moments that I have with people, like that God's presence is involved in those encounters. And so it's like literally practicing by saying like yes to this moment. Like I literally audibly have to say yes to that moment in my brain to be able to be present and not be frustrated. Yeah.
That's a good reinforcement technique.
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to say yes. I'm thinking about saying yes. This is what it's going to be. Yeah.
And it's like, it literally is a discipline, just like meditation could be a discipline or mindfulness or whatever. But yeah, it's like a spiritual discipline for me.
I think about it and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. If I get locked in, if I lock in a day and I know this is what I'm doing, I'm going to the gym at 2.
Yeah.
And then something happens and it causes that to cascade a little bit. Then I'm like, oh, this day's shit. I can't do
everything's
this. The whole day is off. I didn't achieve what I needed to achieve. Mm-hmm. Now tomorrow's going to be worse because I'm going to have to pick up slack.
Well, I mean, and there could be something really like romantic about being open to encounters anytime. Like, you know, you can totally romanticize that. But there's also something really important about having good boundaries and being really disciplined in having a structure in your day so that way you can accomplish the things that you've set out to accomplish. And I think it's both. Like I am not a very disciplined person sometimes. So learning how to be more disciplined while also being open to interruptions it's like a dance. You have to figure it out, like a weird 2-step or something.
And not even just interruptions, but allowing yourself to have free time for those around you.
Yeah.
Planning interruptions in a sense. Then knowing, okay, I need to make time for these other people in my life.
Yeah. 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 Figuring it out as we go, right?
Story of life. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if there was a playbook. You could just run through all the routes and know, okay, this is what I've got. This is what I'm doing.
It would be nice, but at the same time, it's the same thing of like the doctrinal formulas. Some people just need to have everything handed to them. And that's great for a season, but I want to get into it, you know? I don't want it all handed to me. I want to experience it as I go and make up the playbook as I live. There's this guy named Brian McLaren, and he has this book called We Make the Road by Walking. And I just love that because it shows that there's not some sort of a destination in mind that we have to get to. It's more just like we figure it out as we continue forth together in love.
That idea of changing seasons is something that I've been grappling with and allowing yourself to walk into a different season and know that it's not forever. This isn't going to be the rest of your life. This is just a point in time and it will end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's important for young people, especially.
But everybody.
For everybody. Totally. But I see so many juniors and seniors in high school and then in college trying to figure out what am I supposed to do with my life? What is my life plan? What kind of career am I supposed to go? What is my major going to be? All these decisions that they have to make, and then they turn 18 and they're supposed to have it all figured out or something, or they believe that it's all just going to come to them automatically. But encouraging people to recognize that you don't need a year or a long-term career path. You don't need to have some sort of end goal objective. Maybe just think what do I want to do for this next year? Or what do I want to say yes to for 5 years? And then go to school differently or take a trade or travel the world or get married or have kids. But instead of mapping out the whole life with this is how it's going to have to be and what is the right career for me, it's more well, what is the right career for me for right now? And it kind of alleviates some of that locked in sort of way of thinking.
And it helps to know that nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
That's what really helped me, is realizing nobody knows. Everybody's just trying to figure it out as they go. And nobody knows how you should live your life, even more so than that.
Yeah, like that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a sweet question, but it's so intimidating. Unless you're 5 years old and you want to be an astronaut. And then
you got it all figured out.
No big deal.
You know, there's a quote, I cannot think of who it's by. I can't even fully remember the quote now that I'm thinking about it, but it's that there's a certain type of person that knows what they want to be in life and knows the path that they're on, and that's beautiful. And they're right. They've got it all figured out, and that will be what they think they'll be is who they'll become. But there's a beauty in the person that doesn't know and that is walking through life trying to figure it out and is bouncing around through different things and experiencing life in a different way.
Yeah.
And you just have to embrace, if that's you just have to embrace that and find the beauty in that.
I love that.
I didn't do that quote justice. I kind of spoofed it a little bit, but that was the gist.
Nice. I
should do a podcast of just quotes. That should be my new niche.
But the podcast is called Just the Gist.
Just quotes. Not even the gist. I will read them faithfully. I won't even add my interpretation, just the quotes. I'm a big quote guy.
Yeah?
Can't remember them.
No.
Can feel them.
You don't have quotes all over your walls, though.
I have them at my parents' house. I had this double wide mirror that was part of the closet, and it's just covered in quotes.
What's one of your favorite quotes?
I think right now adversity introduces a man to himself, just because that's where I feel I'm at in life. But I've got some darker ones about, chasing false pleasure and getting lost in life. I've been reading Dostoyevsky right now.
Nice.
So processing his stories. I read Notes from Underground. That was the first book of his that I read. And in a weird way, it felt like I was having a mirror up against me. And looking through that, which is weird because the story, for those that have read it, is kind of dark. But yeah, it just really resonated with me. And now I'm reading his Brothers Karamazov book, Brothers K, for those of us that can't pronounce the latter part of that.
I cannot.
Yeah, I don't know if that pronunciation is right. There's a lot of discussion about it, but I'm only 100 pages into that book.
What's that book been like for you so far?
Interesting. I don't think I've gotten into my stride with it yet.
Okay.
But I'm enjoying reading it. The setting is still being kind of placed.
Yeah.
100 pages in, but
I'm
excited.
I've never read any of his books, and I'm so embarrassed to say that and admit that.
Why?
Because they're such classics. They're like, and
but some people just say that. You could say anything.
No, I know, but they're like the kind of classic that impacts you in like a spiritual way. And as a spiritual person, I mean, everybody's a spiritual person. That's just what we are. But as a person that really wants to facilitate spirituality in others, it just feels like the right kind of books to read. My husband's read them a number of times. He's been in a book club with classic books with just guys for like 15 years.
Wow.
I know. And they read all of those classics. There's like 6 dudes. And in the beginning, they would study like what kind of beverage that the author loved to imbibe on. And so then they would make that beverage like Hemingway's whiskey or whatever it was.
Don't let him read Thompson, because that's going to to be a rabbit hole. Oh, yeah. He was doing drugs. He was drinking all the time. Great writer, but definitely like to imbibe.
They aren't doing it quite like that any longer. But for a while there, they would like really get into it like that. But still, they read a book a month, and then they get together once a month and talk about life and the book. And it's kind of the coolest thing. Always classics. And they pick the books at like the beginning of the year. It's pretty cool.
And plan it all out.
They plan it all out.
That's cool.
I know. 15 years.
That's awesome. A big commitment.
It's a big commitment. Seriously. Have you ever been in a book club before?
No.
Do you feel like that could have been helpful to have other people read those, at least the previous book with you? To process it?
Maybe in a way, yes, because there would have been valuable insight that they might have picked up on that maybe I didn't. But I also think that flavors your interpretation of the book a little bit.
Yeah.
I would do a recap book club after I read it if we all came together and did his. I don't know how he did his.
It's just the recap. Yeah.
Just the recap. Okay, so that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
I know some book clubs that meet
weekly.
Yeah, or after 10 chapters or something.
Totally.
I think that's a little different.
Yeah.
Because then you're getting everybody's interpretation. Maybe you start thinking, oh, mine might be wrong, or it flavors how you read the rest of the book.
Yeah.
But a recap would be great.
Oh, that's interesting. How like if you meet weekly or whatever, it could flavor how you read the book. That's a very interesting perspective.
Because people read articles, which are obviously much shorter all the time, and then meet, and they have differing opinions, and then maybe that changes yours. And you start thinking, oh, I interpreted it this way. Maybe I'm wrong. And then moving forward, your author is now flavored by that interpretation.
That's true. That's a really good point.
But that's with everything too. If you say, oh, I love this movie star, and then somebody shits on him, and you're like, oh yeah, he's kind of not that great.
I actually love to see movies in the theater that people have told me are just garbage. They're just like the worst movie.
That's a risky game to play.
Yeah, because then I'm just like, it's not going to be as bad as they say it is. And it usually is not as bad as they say it is. Or sometimes I'll think this is going to be garbage, and then it's better than I thought. Yeah.
I've had that happen the reverse way with great movies too.
Oh, yeah.
You go see everyone's talking about this movie and you're watching. You're like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life watching this. Why?
Yeah, it didn't even end right.
Yeah,
what was this? Yeah.
There's something, reading for me, I think there's an incredible value in it, but I also struggle with making the time for that because it seems like you're
time to read?
Yeah, because it seems like you're just wasting time, almost like you're just watching TV, but you're not. I mean, you could read a certain type of book that maybe isn't. How
do you waste time? What is your time waster, like your vice?
I feel like if I'm not producing something, everything is a time waste.
Do you watch TV?
I do.
Do you watch reels on your phone?
I try not to.
Oh, that's good.
I try not to scroll social media. I try to post and ghost.
Okay. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Post and
I did
ghost.
not come up with that.
Oh,
I can't
man.
take any credit.
You should put that on your wall as a quote.
Post and ghost. Are you a big social media person?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit of a time suck.
It is a time suck. I mean, I don't scroll much, but I like to post. I don't like to ghost.
Ghosting's the hard part. And especially if you're trying to build a community.
Yeah.
Which in some ways I would like to do. Posting and ghosting doesn't really work for that.
No, you got to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's hard to engage because I don't know what it is. Some people are just like prone to being offended all the time. And then you have to like be okay with offending people accidentally most of the time. And and just like let the cards fall where they fall. But I don't know. I like to write. I really love writing. And then when I write things, I like to post them. I try to keep them fairly short. I write for the Lost Coast Outpost, like a faith article every once in a while. I have one coming out on Sunday, and it's like more vulnerable than usual. And so I'm kind of gearing up for, people aren't usually mean. No, they're always really mean. But I think when I'm vulnerable, they won't be as mean, maybe. I don't know.
That's hopeful.
I know, that is hopeful.
Vulnerable in what way? What are you writing about?
Some adoption stuff. When we first found out we couldn't have kids, and we decided to adopt. And we looked into all sorts of different kind of like fertility options out there. And I was in an ethics class writing a paper on assisted human reproduction. And we just realized at that moment that like adoption would be our way of creating a family instead of doing in vitro fertilization or artificial insemination or some other route. And there's even something called embryo adoption, where you can adopt your baby that you give birth to, which is wild.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we considered that for a while as well. But anyway, within the story that I share is about our first adoption. And we had him for a month, and we had to give him back. And it was just like so devastating. But it was during Christmas time, and just the loss that we felt as parents for a month and then no longer being parents. And I didn't get into this part, but if you want to adopt, unless you go through the foster system, and the foster system is so sad too, it's so heartbreaking, which we adopted through the foster system. But the databases of prospective adoptive parents are like beyond long. So many infertile couples out there, like with their smiling faces up on some screen saying, pick me, pick me. And it takes like, most of the time they would say it takes like 5 years to be picked. And so for us to have this adoption that was unsuccessful, we were just like, this is the end. Like we're never going to be picked. We're never going to become a family. It was really devastating, and for lots of different reasons. But anyway, it was during Christmas, and I just talk about how much loss there is around Christmas and how much we feel it more acutely during the holidays, and to be really careful with each other and kind with each other. And then there's just this great paradox that we live in of grief and joy all muddled together, that grief exists and joy exists, and one doesn't negate the other or overshadow the other. They just both exist together. So that's kind of what it's about.
Wow, that's a crazy story. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was the mother she decided she didn't want to go through with it?
It was the father.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, I really want to be my son's dad. And we were like, we can't fight you on that. Like we got a lawyer and everything. We like tried to do the whole taking him to court. The agency had told us that was like the appropriate response, was to take the dad to court because the mom had already made the adoption plan. But we went to court, and everything in us was saying we can't go through this. It was really heartbreaking. And he was somebody who, I mean, he was a kid. He was 19, but he was still living at home. His parents were foster parents themselves. Like, he had a good job. He just really wanted to be his son's dad. And he is. He was able to keep his son. But his son was placed in 2 different homes after us. And both of those families fought him for his rights as well. And eventually, Matthew was able to go home to his dad. But yeah, it was wild.
Wow. Had he been a part of his son's life prior to that?
No. Well, he had gone to like ultrasounds and expressed to his girlfriend that he wanted to parent their child. And his girlfriend just was not, I don't think she was ready to be a mom. And then they had broken up maybe like when she was 7 months pregnant. And he didn't even know when he was born. Like, they never told him that he was born. Fathers that are unmarried have no rights to their child. And when it comes to like paternal rights in the beginning, it takes a long time for them to gain those rights, but they will have to pay child support. So it's kind of a weird system. It's
very weird, especially in California.
Especially in California. Yeah, at least that's what I mean, this was like 19 years ago. So I don't know. Some things may have changed, but yeah, it was really interesting. A weird season.
Well, incredibly hard for you guys to feel like you finally have this child and be a part of each other's lives for a month.
Yeah.
And then just kind of cut ties in a sense.
Yeah, he was 3 days old when we got him. He was the cutest little thing. So yeah, it was wild. It was a crazy time.
I mean, in a sense, kudos to you guys for giving him to the father, I guess, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, we could have fought the dad. I mean, that's the agency was telling us that would be the appropriate thing, that's like, oh, like good, loving parents would fight for this kid. And I was like, yeah, but the dad isn't some loser. Like, he's a good human. Like, he's going to be a great dad. And I can't fight a good father for his rights because we believe we have something better to offer his son. Because that's not true. I mean, adoption is like such a hard thing. It's totally based on loss. Like, kids should be with their families of origin if you can make that happen and the families are healthy. And this was a healthy family. And so, yeah, it was weird.
I can't imagine what he was going through.
Yeah, I know,
especially if you're trying to get the child prior to birth.
Yeah.
I know we're not together and I know we're not married, but I will raise this kid.
Totally.
And for her to be like, nope, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know the reasoning. I don't know why she didn't trust him in that space, or I don't know. I kind of assume there's like a lot of stigma around moms who aren't choosing to mother. And maybe there was a fear of that stigma following her if she wasn't wanting to be a mom at that moment. But yet she'd always be connected to him if she was connected to the dad. I don't know. Those are all assumptions I'm making because she was like an 18-year-old starting college, had her whole life ahead of her. And so I don't question her judgment whatsoever. But yeah, he was a good dad, and I'm sure he still is. Yeah.
Were you guys worried that was, having gone through the process, thinking this might be our only chance?
Oh my gosh, totally. It was incredibly we had to surrender everything. We had to surrender all of our future hopes and desires to become parents. We didn't know what it would look like. We were young. I think I was 24, 25 maybe. So we were super young.
And pretty close in age to them.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And Jay and I had already been married for about 4 years, I think, when that happened, 4 or 5 years. So yeah, we knew that we had our whole lives ahead of us, but yet there is this, I don't know, like there was just this desire to become parents immediately, like quickly. And so we decided to go the adoption route. But yeah, and then we found like a family law attorney, so somebody who wasn't involved with an agency, because with the agency it did not work out. They like banished us because we chose to not follow through with the adoption. And they got
mad at you for that.
They were so mad. They called us unfit to be parents. They were so mad. We were their first, what they called a failed adoption. And they're the oldest adoption agency in California. Their very first. That's our claim to fame.
That is a crazy way to frame that situation.
I know.
As a failed adoption.
Yes. Right? Instead of seeing it as like a hopeful reunion with a parent, you know? Yeah. So we went from there and got a family law attorney, and my husband was on staff at like a really big church down in Orange County. And so he, like everybody knew some pregnant teenager somewhere. So we had a lot of potential adoptions come our way in the course of like 9 months after we had to give Matthew back. So it was really intense, an intense season. Right after Matthew, like 2 weeks after Matthew, a baby was born here in Fortuna. And so we knew somebody up here, and they're like, hey, there's a baby at the hospital and they need parents. And so we drove up here to visit that baby. And then, and that didn't work out. And then there were twins that didn't work out. And then just other random ones here and there. And then the last one, I was there for the birth, and she had a C-section, and I spent the night in the hospital with the little baby and Jonathan. And then they changed their mind as well, which is totally fine. But the dad was really convincing her to do it, and this dad was a total loser. Like, he was not there. He was like claiming his rights to manhood, I think, but not claiming goodness over his family. Because, yeah, that was a really, really hard one. And then we just didn't do anything. We're like, we're done. We can't. We have no more money. We have no more emotional space in our lives to do anything. And so we just let go of everything. And yeah, and then we moved up to Humboldt to start Catalyst Church. And like 2 weeks after we got up here, our son, Isaac, his mom called, and she's like, hey, this is who I am. And I've got this little guy, and I think you guys should adopt him. And we're like, thank you, but we can't. Like, we don't have any money. We have nowhere to live. We were like living on our friend's couch. We don't have jobs, and so it's just not going to work. And she's like, well, I think you're supposed to adopt him, so I'll call you back next month. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, so that's how we got Isaac.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's insane.
I know.
She just knew. Was she a friend, a family friend or anything?
Yeah. She was in my parents' Bible study, and she had grown daughters and a grandson that was born 3 months before Isaac was born. And she had found out that she was pregnant the same time that Jay and I were wondering if we could keep Matthew. So she and my mom ran into each other in like a Safeway parking lot. They hadn't seen each other in like, I don't know, 6-7 years. They were catching up, and she just found out she was pregnant. My mom was like, and Jason and Bethany have this little boy, Matthew, and they're hoping to adopt him. And so the whole time she was pregnant, she had this idea of like, if I can't parent my son, then I know these people that I would trust to do so. So she had us in mind the whole time, and
didn't take no for an answer.
Didn't take no for an answer. Yeah, I know. It's so crazy.
That's insane.
I know. Like, all of it is just like, I don't know, the hand of God is just very apparent, and it hasn't been a walk in the park. I mean, we became foster parents, and we've fostered a few children and adopted 2 of them, and it's been like this really beautiful and hard experience, as is for most parents. Most parenting experiences are very beautiful and hard. Glennon Doyle calls it brutiful, both brutal and beautiful. And that's what life is. It's brutal.
Talk about a story of attrition. And how many times do you go through that and keep your head up and want to try again or be open to try again?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I do not have an answer for that at all. It's I don't know. It's just, it is what you make of it, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle that. Especially you have a child and you feel like, oh, okay, we're starting this family, and to have that one taken away from you, even for a circumstance like that one, and then to try again and not get that. I mean, how many times do you go through that and say, okay, we can try again.
Totally.
Build up the emotional support again. Let's get our heads back on straight. We can do this. We just have to stay in the game. And then how many times you hit that wall and think, oh, okay, this is the last one.
Yeah.
I can't do this again.
Yeah. I literally, the grace of God. I have no other way to explain it. I mean, and obviously, like, I think I just always am able to see a bright future, I guess, or like hope for the best. There's this old Jewish song that says, "Expect the worst and hope for the best," and I think that's it's kind of how I live my life. I'm like, I mean, even like last night, every Tuesday we do something called Family Fun Night, and it's more like forced family fun night because our kids are teenagers and they don't really want to be around us much or around each other, and so now their friends get to come, so it kind of softens the experience. But I'm always like expecting the worst but hoping for the best. I know somebody's gonna like say something offensive to somebody else. Somebody's gonna be mad at somebody else. Somebody's going to be like glowering because they don't want to be there and like, why do we even have to do this or whatever? It's just going to happen. It's just the reality. And yet at the same time, I hope for the best. Like, they're going to feel more bonded to each other. They're going to like have these good memories. We're going to have a great time. Everybody will be fed. Everybody will like laugh at least one part, and it's going to be good enough. And that's how we do it. And it was great. We threw axes and ate pizza, and everybody seemed like they were okay.
And they're going to look back on that fondly.
Yeah, and probably do that for their own families someday.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, like with good memories. Like, oh my gosh, my parents always did this thing called Family Fun Night, and it was awesome, even though at this moment they wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when you get the phone call, hey, Mom, you were right. I'm glad you did that. I don't know.
Do you think that phone call will ever come? I'm not
It might not be
sure.
a physical phone call. They might have the moment of recognition that you were right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll actually get the praise for it.
Probably not.
Credit's hard to come by.
I'm not expecting that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my parents are owed some credit that I haven't picked up the phone to call yet.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's the thing with parenting. I mean, as much as I would love to hear like a thanks, Mom and Dad, or like, well, actually my youngest is great at that. He's amazing at being very appreciative and really truly believing his appreciation. But I don't know. It's not like I'm banking on that, and I don't need it. I don't need their affirmation or appreciation. I want that, not for myself, but for their benefit, because when they are people that are full of gratitude or are appreciative, that changes their demeanor and makes them healthier humans and better adults someday. So I want that for them, but I don't need it for me, if that makes sense.
It's not necessarily about the appreciation. It's about you setting them up for success in a way.
Yeah.
For giving them these memories that they'll be able to carry forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed, right?
Fingers crossed.
You're probably on a good track. You don't seem like someone that would raise serial killers, so I think you're safe.
I hope not.
That would be a hard pill to swallow. That moment.
Right?
Watching your kid go into court thinking, what did you do? I think about that with, have you been following that UnitedHealthcare?
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
unreal. The response, people's
Right?
response to that situation is wild.
Yeah. And I think it's because I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it's complicated in the fact that he killed somebody. Like that's super horrible and messed up. Like murder is never the option. I do not believe that. But labeling him a terrorist or like, I don't know. I feel like if we're going to label him a terrorist, if he's getting convicted of that, then like, what about a police person killing a Black person? They should be considered terrorists. Like, where does the line, like the line is only there for those that are like most going to benefit from it. The people at the top are the ones that benefit. And that makes me really angry and sad. So yeah.
Yeah, the terrorist branding is kind of insane.
Yeah.
For something like this.
Yeah, totally.
But the response has been,
yeah.
I've been watching these replies from people, especially the ones that are kind of fangirling this guy. People
I know.
Like, oh,
he's so attractive.
Yeah. We would have had a great life together. And I'm like, oh, what?
He's going to get so many marriage proposals. I would not be surprised at all.
I'm kind of interested to see if he finds some way. I don't know about necessarily getting off from this, but I've heard rumors that maybe he's going to plead insanity to try to sway the jury a little bit. Because it seems like there is some level of genuine support for this guy.
There is. And I mean, maybe insanity in some ways. It sounds like he kind of like started getting more recluse and moving away from society in some ways months beforehand. There could be like, they could probably make a case for that. I don't know if it would go through or anything, but
I mean, all you have to do is sway one person on a jury.
Yep.
Which is kind of insane. That's all it takes.
I know.
Just one person thinks, oh, he's kind of hot. He doesn't deserve to go to jail. What? Okay. That's comforting for the justice system.
The attraction level of a human that allows
human that just murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you think morally the CEO was in the right or in the wrong, or regardless of what you think of the company, someone was just murdered.
Yep.
Just walked onto the street and shot in the back.
It is so weird how our brains will justify certain behavior based on somebody's attractiveness and their sex appeal. It is so weird how our brains do that.
And whether we find the cause morally right or not.
Totally.
We can justify murder. If you're killing somebody I don't like, then...
I mean, we do it all the time with capital punishment. Like
that's a good point.
People justify murder all the time. A lot of Christians, like capital punishment is the thing to do because, you know, an eye for an eye. But I mean, I don't see that that's biblical at all. I think it's actually a perversion of the love of Christ. I'm very much against capital punishment. I understand it, but I'm against it.
Yeah, but then what if, the argument I fall back on is, what if, say you kill 100 people that are on capital punishment that have committed these horrendous crimes.
Yeah.
And we know that they did this. Jury found them guilty. What if one of them is innocent?
I know.
Still sacrifice the other 99?
I don't know.
With one person?
Yeah.
That just, maybe there was a cop that did something he shouldn't have, or a DA that was a little too gung-ho.
Totally. I mean, we've read articles on it. It's happened. Totally. I know. It's a risky business.
That's kind of an interesting case study for society, watching this one play out. And
as
it moves forward, like, what do we... There was some poll that I was looking at, and I believe they polled 1,000 people and then broke it down into age brackets. And 18 to 29-year-olds, something like 40 or 50% thought that he wasn't guilty and shouldn't be punished for this. I don't know how true that is. I think I saw this on X, but it freaked me out a little bit. Wow.
I mean, we'll believe anything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, who's going to be president? I mean, we want to believe what we want to believe. And we find sources that will uphold that belief system forever and always. Yeah.
And how many people have been burned by the healthcare system in this country?
I know.
And feel some sort of vindication from this moment.
It's true. Yeah. So many people have been so hurt and like overlooked and things not taken care of and have died and
gone into debt,
huge debts. I know. It's very predatory. It just is. Yeah.
Just hope we don't start shooting people on the street for that. But in some ways we already are, right? We have gang violence. We have all these other things.
Yeah.
People are getting shot in the street all the time.
It's true.
It's just not very many CEOs are getting shot in the street.
It's very rare. Yeah. Yeah. I know. And there was the school shooting in Wisconsin. And yeah.
I haven't even started looking into that one because it's just like, you're just inundated with those stories.
It's incredibly overwhelming.
I believe that was just a young girl, wasn't it? Like 15?
15-year-old girl. I know. It just doesn't fit the classic paradigm that we want to put people in. Like, she doesn't fit the narrative. So it's just, it's really heartbreaking, incredibly heartbreaking. So thoughts and prayers. Let's not get rid of guns.
I don't even know if that would change anything.
Oh, I don't.
I think there's something that drives someone to do something like that. And I think we need to start asking that question. Why? What compels somebody? I don't know.
I mean,
maybe not.
Look at all the schools doing all these like meditation practices and mindfulness and like trying to help kids understand themselves a little bit more. And so I think that people are trying to do the work, but regardless, it's not happening. I mean, I think guns are obviously a huge problem. It's not the reason that somebody has killed somebody, but it is the accessible weapon to do so like quickly and effectively.
Well, for a 15-year-old, there's no way you can get a gun. So how?
Yeah. I don't even know. I haven't studied anything on it.
Yeah, I don't know how she even got.
Yeah. I don't know if it's her parents or grandparents or whatever. Who knows? But it makes me wonder, like, even like if we could have better gun control, like not just look at who's buying the gun and doing background checks on those people, but even like what are your kids like at home? Like, have any of these teenagers experienced any kind of psychosis recently, or experienced any 5150 or whatever? That it's not just the person buying the gun, it's the people that live in the home with the person that has the gun. I don't know if that's a pipe dream. I know it's not going to ever happen, but I don't know. There's just a lot of darkness and sadness and despair, and people tend to believe that there's no other way out and there's no other hope, and they need to take other people out with them, unfortunately. It's a simplicity, of course.
What is your view on suicide?
Why do you ask?
I've been grappling with this idea of suicide for a while now, and I feel like it's tangentially related to where this topic is.
Yeah.
You always hear people say that suicide is selfish, that it's a selfish act, you doing this and you taking yourself away from your family and your friends. And I've never felt that way. I've never felt that suicide should be framed like that this is some selfish act, that you're just a piece of shit for doing this.
Yeah.
I feel like selfishness is an act like that. Like you taking a gun and turning it on other people.
Yes.
That's what I view as selfish.
Yeah.
I think my sister framed it great for me when I was growing up. She said, God gives us what he believes we can handle. And sometimes it's just too much. And that's how I view suicide. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's brave. I just think you don't know what that person's going through. You don't know how long they fought to stay alive before they finally killed themselves. And to call it selfish, just to brand it that black and white, just never really sat well with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when you have people that go out and murder kids. That's selfish. Going out and killing anybody is selfish.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that whole phrase, like, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. I think that God gives us what we can to handle life. But the things that come our way aren't things that are always given by God for us to handle. And we have a lot of tools within us as humans, but there's a lot of horrible things that happen to people throughout their lives, whether they're children or adults. That's just too much to handle. And then throw some mental illness in there. It's, I don't know, there's just some people that suffer so much and their suffering is so overwhelming that I don't think it's selfish when they take a different road out. I just don't. I don't think it's a sin. A lot of people do. A lot of people think that it's an unforgivable sin. I don't see anything about that in scripture. I see in the same way that, like, if one of my children took their lives, I wouldn't hate them for that. I would be so sad. I would be devastated beyond belief. I'd be incredibly heartbroken that life was so hard that they felt like they couldn't live for another day. That would destroy me. But I wouldn't hate them for it. And I can't imagine a loving God would ever hate his child for doing the same. I think that God, his heart breaks and God mourns and God is grieved that we are experiencing the kind of suffering that we're experiencing and that we didn't feel like there was any other way out. And for some people, they've tried everything. They've done all the hard work. They've done the therapy. They've taken the medication. They've prayed forever. They've gone on long retreats. They've volunteered in soup kitchens. They've done the drug rehab. They've done everything, and they still can't find their way out of the darkness. And it's a really overwhelming feeling to have for that long. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just never been a fan of that branding.
Mm-mm.
It just seems like so... I don't know. It feels like you're missing so much nuance to the situation.
Yeah.
You just say, oh, it's selfish.
Yeah.
Piece of shit. Why would you do that? I mean, no, not condoning it, not saying people should ever feel
of course not.
pushed to that route, but just to, I don't know, just to label it like that. I never.
Well, and it comes from a place of like a lack of compassion when we're saying something like a person is being selfish. I think that lack of compassion by declaring somebody selfish is the same lack of compassion that could have given them an opportunity to take their life in the first place. Like so often, I think what people need in those spaces of severe suffering is deep compassion, like a sense of empathy and love and can I walk with you in this? And but oftentimes we live in a place that's like so hidden where we don't really want to be seen, where those darkest spots of ours need to stay hidden, and we don't want to be a burden to anybody because we don't want to be selfish and are burdening anybody or whatever. And that's really unfortunate because that we believe that we are a burden. And if a person believes they are a burden, then the easiest way to unburden is to leave forever.
And especially in those situations, you would feel like a burden.
Yeah.
Bringing up your problems to somebody else, saying, hey, I'm in this spot.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this way.
Yeah. But I truly believe that every human is intrinsically valuable, always and forever. And their life is valuable. And even though some of us go through harder things than other people and some of us have greater needs than other people, it doesn't mean that our value is less important than somebody else.
I do feel comfortable saying that killing people is selfish, though. I think I can make that jump.
Yes.
Reframe the branding.
100%, yes.
I feel comfortable in that.
Yeah.
In most situations.
Yeah. I mean, I think violence in any capacity is selfish.
What about the military?
I do not love the violence of the military. I understand the purpose behind it. I don't think that we need to get rid of our military, but I think we're meant to long for something beyond the military and have a vision and a hope for something where the military is no longer needed in the forms that it's used right now. And sometimes we could just be like, oh, well, we will never get there. Obviously, the world is getting worse every second. We need a bigger military. But that's like, it's another, I don't know. We're probably going down a rabbit hole, but I think sometimes it's another form of selfishness that I need to do whatever it takes to protect what's mine and protect myself at the cost of other people in the world that have less.
Well, it's hard when you're looking at these forever wars that we engage in, where we just go decimate this region for something like WMDs only to find out, oh, there actually were never any. And we knew that prior to going in, but still we went and killed how many millions of people and how many millions of lives were lost unnecessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll ever get to a place where we'll just have peace, which would be nice.
It would be nice.
It would be nice not to have to spend trillions of dollars on the military.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful for our military and for everybody who's ever served. I have a lot of admiration for our service members, and I would encourage people to consider serving, definitely. Like, if that's what you feel like you're called to do. It's a beautiful picture of of giving of yourself for the sake of somebody else. I think it's really gorgeous. But
you
also,
hope that sacrifice is in pursuit of something real.
Yeah. And so often it hasn't been. Like history has shown us, American history has shown us that we have fought wars that are unjustifiable, that are like horrifying. And our military has done horrible things, war crimes against humanity. I believe that part of like what it means to be human is to continually make reparations for the harms that our generations past. And instead of believing that, well, that was then, that doesn't matter anymore, whether it's Native American rights or what happened in Vietnam or anything like that. Like, we need to do whatever we can to make it right as individuals and as a community and as people of the United States. I don't know if that will ever happen, but it happens. It has to happen with me first. I know that.
I'm kind of hopeful that space exploration will alleviate some of these external stressors. I think that we are
just going into space.
I think that we are explorers in our nature, and I think that if we could funnel that energy into something positive instead of just fighting amongst each other.
How do you see that working out? Like when you say, I would love to see space exploration being something of the future, like what is the dream of that for you? Or how do you envision that?
That's probably like a combination of Star Trek and Star Wars. Us just building new homes on these other planets.
Yeah.
Building new societies, technological advancements.
But why not just build those homes and technological advancements and societies here on our planet?
I think we'll always be here as long as the planet doesn't implode or we don't have a super volcano go off and then the Earth becomes inhabitable. Or we don't drop nukes on each other,
that's highly likely.
There's a possibility nowadays. I don't know. I just think that we need to, maybe if we could expand out a little bit and there wasn't so much internal strife and pressure of there's only a finite amount of land. And so we got to make sure that we have enough land. And our population is expanding, so we need more land for this. If that wasn't an issue, if we could just spread out, there was enough for everybody, go colonize a new planet, go build a new homestead somewhere, go adventure. I think maybe that would alleviate some stress that we feel. Maybe not. Maybe we would just be warring in space, fighting over the moon.
Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Look at that. The people that were at the Earth are the same as the people everywhere in the world, in the universe. We're the same judgmental and violent humans.
Do you think that's innate to us, this warring nature?
I think what's innate to us, if we get to the closest part of what it means to be human, is a sense of goodness and love. Like, I really believe that that's like the core of every single person. I think that there's a lot that messes up that throughout childhood and throughout environmental things. And I don't know, there's just a lot that messes that up. But yes, I do believe that there is this desire to come out first, to be the number one, and to be at the top and to have that kind of power. And if you crave power in that sense, then you will do whatever it takes to continue to hold on to that power, even if it means destroying those around you or making them less.
Or
and that's
destroying yourself in some ways.
Absolutely destroying yourself. And that's why like the teachings of Jesus are so compelling to me. They're so subversive, because Jesus is like, yeah, you want to be the first. I get it. Because who doesn't? But that's not the way of God's kingdom. Like, that's not the way of God. Like, the first will be last, the last will be first. The minute that we say who's going to be the greatest is the minute that we are also going to say who's going to be least. And so that's like a power move that we want to claim. Jesus said to like take your power back, essentially, by like making power equal. So, when he said to his disciples, if someone asks you to go a mile with them, then you go the second mile as well. And the whole idea of that was that first mile would have been forced on them by a Roman military person, and you'd be forced to carry the load from the Roman centurion or whoever for a mile, and they couldn't demand anybody to carry something longer than a mile. So you choosing to go another mile with them is a volunteer option. And you're basically saying, you once told me that I had to do this. I'm now telling you that I'm going to do this. And you're claiming your power, essentially. You're creating an equal place. And same with like giving somebody, Jesus said to like give somebody your coat and give them your tunic as well. And it was this way of like somebody could demand, I need your coat. And whatever you had underneath the tunic was all you had left. And if you gave them your tunic as well, then you were without clothes, you were naked, you were like exposing yourself and creating a sense of shame and embarrassment upon the person who forced it from you in the first place. It's like turning everything on its head. So I think that as much as we can as people to create less hierarchical power, I think is a really important part of what it means to be human.
Are you hopeful for 2025?
I'm always hopeful for everything.
I was going to say, putting it into the context that you are a hopeful person generally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm concerned. I have concerns, but I think that's an important thing. I think most people are concerned about every year that we're alive. Yeah, I definitely have some concerns, but at the same time, I don't want to like doom and gloom it.
Dwell on them.
Yeah. And truthfully, like my concerns are for people that will be more affected by this new administration than others. So I can't get pregnant, so I'm not worried about abortion rights. But my daughter, and I mean, abortion is a huge thing anyway, but, and you know, for different people of color, for different marginalized groups, for DACA students and undocumented people, like there's just a certain amount of concern that I have for people that could have more horrible things coming their way. But for myself, I'm not worried because I am a person of privilege and I recognize that.
You seem like a very happy person, but it also seems like you have this weight that you can carry, almost like a coat that you can put on and put off.
Yeah, I'd say that.
You feel like that's accurate?
Yes, I think that is actually very accurate because I choose to hold the weight for people a lot, and I'm grateful to have that opportunity to like walk with people and hold their burdens with them and help them process through life. I don't carry it with me though. It's true. It's like a coat. Maybe that's because my memory is bad.
Again, that's the moral of the story. Key to life is just having a short-term memory.
Yes. But yeah, usually I'm very much in the moment with whoever I'm with, but I mean, as we discussed before we started recording, which I'm not going to add much to, is there's a lot of burdens within my home, within my family, and within my kids, and so there's a heaviness that I live in every day because of that, and it's stuff that I can't necessarily take off, but I don't internalize it to where I make the hard things that I'm experiencing at home into the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't make them worse intentionally.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people lean on you a lot in your life?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I think I've got pretty good boundaries most of the time. I had a parishioner call me last week and she said, "Are we friends?" And I said, as much as I want to say yes, because I love calling everybody friend, I was really taken aback by that question. And I said, I don't know if we actually are friends. I'm your pastor, and there's a certain amount of my own life that I will choose not to share with you, but you can share your whole life with me if you want. And I would love to listen to that. But there's only a few people that I get to share the deeper parts of my life with, or I choose to. And she received that fine. But for me, I felt like that was kind of a brave moment because I don't like to ever make anybody feel sad or uncomfortable. And so I needed to put that boundary in place. And I was really proud of myself for doing so.
That's a huge moment.
Thanks.
I'm envious of that moment because I slip into the same patterns, and especially being careless with words like that with friend.
Yeah.
And are you really this person's friend? Or is this
totally.
Is there a feeling attached to this word and you feel like you could throw that at them and it'd be beneficial for them and for you?
Yeah, because I love really easily. I love people so easily. I just do. But friend and love are not the same thing in my book. There's like a different level of intimacy with friend than love. Love is something I can like put out into the world and see people for who they are and accept people and want to like get to know them. But friend is something that's more intimate.
A little more sacred.
A little more sacred. Yeah. Even though I believe that love is the most important thing of all, here I am like, disassembling that.
But that should be one of the things that we give out graciously and almost carelessly in a sense.
Yeah.
Until maybe someone gives you a reason not to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that whole thing in the beginning. Like I asked if you liked yourself. I think sometimes it's easier to love ourselves than it is to like ourselves. Because the love that we have for ourselves and others is just this great acceptance and being able to see ourselves and be like, okay, yeah, I do love myself. I am worthy of love. But I don't like all the parts of myself. There are parts of me that I just don't really like. And I could love those parts of me and the fact that they're just a part of me, but I don't like them very much. I don't know. Maybe that's too much down a path. I don't know.
Do you feel like you treat yourself in the same way that you would treat someone you love?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm really good to myself most of the time. Yeah. I definitely like berate myself every once in a while. Like, but it's usually like weird body image things. That's usually
really,
usually where it comes from, which is silly because I feel like I'm a healthy person. I feel like I'm aging nicely, all those things, but there's still like these weird little body image things that pop up that are just so dumb. Like, where did that come from? Why am I like obsessed about this part of my body right now? And I don't know. I guess it helps create a little bit of empathy for everybody else, but yeah.
I've been working through that friend branding. I had a situation, falling out with someone that I thought was my friend. And maybe that was just me projecting this value onto them without really thinking about what that word meant. And then you have a little wake up call and you're like, oh, I've been very loose with my words. And like we said, words carry weight.
Yeah.
You have to treat them with respect.
Yeah.
You can get a little careless, especially if you're a people pleaser. Like, oh, we're all friends. We all like each other. We're all great. And then you realize, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have used that.
Well, I think when we believe the best in other people, then it's easy to let guards down. It's easy to believe the relationship is exactly how you believe it to be. So the relationship or friendship that you have with someone you just would assume that they have the same thoughts about you that you have of them. And then to find that that's not true can hurt really bad. I had that with a friend recently, and it was just like, oh, it was so heart-wrenching of just like, wait a minute. I thought we were on the same page here. I thought we were friends. And yeah, there's things that you don't love about me and there's things I don't love about you, but that's what it means to be human. And it got really dark really fast and so hurtful and so painful. Just came out of left field. Yeah.
Those moments are challenging to say the least. You realize, okay, my perception of this situation really didn't line up with reality.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to always see like, what part did I play in this? Like, where did I go wrong? Like how did I cause damage? How could I behave differently in whatever friendship is no longer there? And then there's some times where I'm just like, no, I can be confident in the way I behaved in this friendship. And it's always good to like self-reflect.
Well, yeah, especially if you want to make any progress and not keep stumbling into the same situation, which is easy to do. Like, nothing happened on my end. I'm okay. Then you realize, oh, this is happening consistently in my life. Maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah.
maybe I need to look in the mirror a little more. think about what's going on here.
Yeah. I remember reading this analogy in a book ages ago. It was called like Boundaries in Marriage. And they wrote about like this guy, and he buys a sports car and he's driving it fast and he's loving the sports car. And then he crashes the sports car and he's like, oh, a dumb sports car. So he goes to like buy another one and he drives it real fast and he's like just loving it and just having the best time with it ever. And, crashes that one. Oh, the stupid sports car, and gets another one. And it's just like this whole idea of like, we always want to blame the object or the other person instead of recognizing our own place in what happened. Yeah. And it feels good to blame. It feels like
it's easier that way.
Oh, it's so easy. I don't have to take responsibility for myself. I can move on. Everything's fine. But then we keep running into the same patterns of behavior over and over again.
And it gets exhausting.
I know. So we put it in a box and put it on the shelf.
Tape it up. Use some duct tape this time so maybe it'll last a little while longer.
Put some wrapping paper on it so it looks pretty.
Maybe it'll open at Christmas time and we can just make it a yearly thing. We won't have to think about it every few months. We'll just do once a year. A big celebration of, okay, let's open all the packages.
All the packages.
Every present gets opened and then we'll box them up.
Oh, box them up fast.
Yeah.
They stunk.
Yeah. I don't have answers for those situations. We're all still working through those in some ways.
Yeah. Lifelong.
I did want to ask about your podcast.
Yeah.
Because is that book club adjacent? Are you interviewing authors with that? Or
I am. It's not. Yeah. I don't know if it would be book club adjacent or anything, but it's called This Is Not Church, and I'm on it with two guys that are brothers. One lives in Texas and one's up in Neyland, so close to where we are here. And yeah, it's fun. I love it. We get to like read really cool authors and talk about their books and talk about who they are and like their faith experiences and where they are, how they got to where they are. A lot of the people on the podcast are people that are kind of disenfranchised with the church and with Christianity, especially evangelical Christianity. So there's some like snarkiness for sure here and there. I feel like they brought me on to be like more of a
balance it out.
Yeah, to kind of balance it out, because I really do believe in the church. I believe that the church is this subversive, beautiful entity, or it can be in its best form. And I think that, yeah, I still love it. I still love that people gather with their myriad of differences and their beliefs and like how they see the world and how they see themselves and each other. And they kind of lay some of those things aside to gather around Jesus. I love it when people sing together. Like choirs are totally a thing of the past, but when people like join their voices in a song, and sometimes like we sing songs, I'm just like, oh, I do not believe that. That's bad theology. And that's okay. But yeah, I very much believe in it. So the podcast is fun because I get to bring that kind of perspective back. Both of the guys are more agnostic than Christian at this point any longer. Yeah.
How often do you guys do it?
Every week.
Every week?
Yeah, we record every Monday, a different author. We've interviewed some really cool people, like just people that I wouldn't have read about, or I wouldn't have found their work if it wasn't for the podcast. And it forces me to read a book every week.
Almost, I was gonna say, that's a high bar.
A book. Yeah. Which is Mondays. We podcast on Mondays. I only really read on Mondays because the rest of the week is slammed with church responsibilities. And so I usually go on the treadmill at Health Sport and walk and read. Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
My legs are so tired afterwards. I'm like all sweaty and
try not to sweat on the pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll need to write in the margins. So I have to like, either carefully write. It's like very sloppy because I'm walking and writing. But yeah, it's
How long
fun.
have you been doing that?
Not very long, maybe 5 months, 6 months.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think you were doing that when we did the last one.
Yeah, it's newer. It's not a newer podcast. They just invited me on recently. Maybe like 7 months. I don't know. It's been a while. Yeah.
That's cool.
I know.
And you have access to these people that you might not have ever crossed paths with.
Totally. Yeah. And some authors are people that I've known for I've known of their work for a long time, and I'm just like fangirling, like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I get to be on a podcast with Brian McLaren or whoever. So that's super fun. But most of the time I'm like, never heard of these people, but this is a good book. And sometimes I'm like, never heard of these people, and this book sucks.
Like, this is going to be a rough podcast.
Yeah. Some of them are like highly academic, which is hard to read sometimes. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, you two can take the lead on this podcast.
Totally.
Just kind of, I'll nod along here in the corner.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, Bethany, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I always enjoy having you on. I enjoy our conversations.
Me too. You are a wonderful person to talk to, and you're great at asking questions and just seeing where the conversation goes.
Likewise.
So, good
job. Do you want to plug all of your stuff where people can find your podcast?
Sure.
Your blog, the posts on Loco?
Yeah. So the Lost Coast Outpost, I just put out like kind of a bi-monthly blog there, a faithy column that comes out on Sunday mornings. And my Instagram is Bethany Nass Cseh, and that's CSEH. My church is Catalyst Church, and it's in Humboldt County. And there's YouTubes of my sermons up there too. You can always just go to YouTube and look up Catalyst Church Humboldt and find sermons if you ever want to listen to me preach.
Okay, thanks, Bethany.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got 2 books. One is called Stepping into Advent, and the other is Stepping into Lent. So they're both like guided reflections on different spiritual practices in the church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check those out.
Check those out.
Awesome. Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks, Nick.